Chapter 1. The Mission. In the quiet, dimly lit room sat a figure. Waiting, watching, planning. "This isn't going to be an easy mission," Alex whispered, eyes fixed on the tablet in her hand. For weeks, she had been hiding in the shadows, inching closer to her target. Watch. Learn. And for God's sake, don't get too close. The director's words echoed in her mind. Alex was a professional. She'd completed dozens of missions in her career, but this one was different. Strange. Exhilarating. She lifted the scope to her eye. The tall woman came into focus through the glass, closer than the 250 meters that separated them. In the well-lit apartment, she could see her pacing, drink in one hand, what looked like a phone in the other. Then the woman paused, set the phone down, refilled her glass, and stepped out onto the balcony. No curtain now. Nothing between them. Maxima Decimus Aurelius Giordano, Max for short, also known as Maxima, the Widowmaker. She stood there, dressed in black leather pants that hung low on her hips, accentuating strong, muscular legs. A strappy tank top clung just above her navel, her toned upper body gleaming under the moonlight. Alex blinked once. Then again. The slick black hair cascaded over one shoulder, catching the breeze as Maxine ran a hand through it, pushing it out of her face. Alex's gaze locked onto her features, strong, but softened by something unspoken. Vulnerability, maybe. In 6 months of watching her, this was the first time Alex didn't see the infamous Mafia Queen who ruled Italy's largest criminal empire. Her eyes, an unnatural, piercing green. Her nose, sharp and regal. Her lips, brushed faintly with a pale shade of pink lipstick. The woman in the scope wasn't what the media, enemies, or even family feared. But Alex knew better. She had seen what Maxine was capable of: ruthless, heartless power. "Focus, Alex," she murmured to herself. "You have a mission. A directive. That's it. Nothing else." She squared her shoulders, adjusted her position, and continued to watch. Study. Prepare. Chapter 2. The Sister. On the other side of Alex's scope, Maxima Giordano stares out into the cool Italian night. Summer is being replaced by autumn, and she can feel a shift in the air. Soon the city will be covered in snow, and that is the time she escapes to the mountains. She enjoys solitude. Tonight, she is alone in the penthouse, no companion as per usual when she visits her sister, Sophia. Sophia and Mia, her niece. The only two people in the world that has her throw off her hard exterior and role as head of the Giordano house. The Camorra Mafia has ruled over Campania for centuries, and Max is not the first female leader, and she wouldn't be the last. In fact, she is the 10th woman leader, hence the name Decimus. A smile tugs at a lip, thinking of Mia. Not only is Mia her niece, but also her godchild. And she will burn the world down for Mia and Sophia in a heartbeat if any harm comes to them. Sophia called her yesterday for an urgent meeting, and Max rearranged her schedule to be here. Her responsibilities have been her mostly traveling, and it is only on birthdays and holidays that she makes time for them. She glances at her watch. Sophia will be here in 15 minutes. Max drowns the liquid in the glass, stares into the night sky for a second, and turns to move into the room when suddenly she feels a strange feeling that she is being watched. Nothing new, as she is always aware of people watching her. Enemies, rivals, and even media, but this is a strange feeling. She shrugs it off just as the elevator doors opens the penthouse level.
"Sorellina," she says.
Sophia smiles broadly, hearing Max greets her. "Primogenito," Sophia responds. "It's been too long." She hugs Max and kisses her cheeks. "You look tired." Sophia notices the strain in Max's eyes. "I think it's time for a visit to the countryside." Maxine smiles as they take a seat on the leather couches. "Tell me first how my princess is," Maxine asks. They continue talking about Mia, her school, friends, and then Max notices a fear in Sophia's eyes. "What is it, Sorella? Talk to me." Sophia looks at her hands for a long time, sighs deeply, and then with a shaky voice proceeds to tell Maxine about the phone calls at night, the black vehicles in the rear mirror, and the shadows ever present. Maxine froze, and her gaze hardens. No one dares to ever get close to her family, as she has proven over and over that the world is a very small place to hide in the vengeance of Maxima Decimus Aurelius Giordano, the Widowmaker, a nickname that thunders and commands presence and fear. Max gets up and walks to the table where her phone sits. She picks it up, makes a call, and mutters something in Italian. She then turns to Sophia and speaks. "You and Mia will be safe, I promise you that." And with that she picks up her leather jacket and speaks. "Let's eat." Sophia shakes her head and smiles, following her sister to the elevator. Chapter 3. Deliberate Encounter. Alex shifts into the position she's been in for an hour. Laying on her stomach, watching the two women converse shortly, and then stepping into the elevator means she has 7 minutes before the reaches ground level and into the SUV parked in front of the building. She gathers her stuff, pulls the sling of the backpack over her shoulders, pulls her black hoodie over her fiery red curls, hiding it. She moves quickly and reaches her bike just as Max and Sophia emerge from the building. Because she was a few blocks away, she knew the route to the restaurant. She kickstarts the bikes, and the powerful engine roars under her. She drove along the back street and found the restaurant. For the past 6 months, she has been gathering intel on all of Max, her properties, businesses, and frequent eateries. Antica Hostaria Massa dal 1848, or just Antica as per locals, is one of the oldest and the only place she has seen Max goes to, so that's where she will meet them. She parks her bike in a small alley behind the restaurant and waits. Movement in front of the restaurant had Alex moving deeper into the shadows. She watches as 2 bodyguards get out, scans the area, and then moves swiftly to open the back doors. Before Alex, the tall, drop-dead gorgeous Max stood. Her presence was frighteningly commanding, and the hair on Alex's neck stood. This is a very dangerous woman, and yet the thought of her on the hotel balcony that Alex observed through her scope was a stark contrast to his fiery goddess. Max Giordano is a magnet to Alex, a strange attraction that she has been pushing away for the past 6 months. She has been watching her. Alex stood there frozen as Maxine looked around, scanning her surroundings with eerie precision. Alex dared not move as she knew. One slight movement, and her location was given away. Maxine stood looking at the spot. Alex was invisible in the dark, like she knew she was there. Alex held her breath, but before she could exhale, she saw Maxine turns and follows Sophia into the restaurant. Alex exhales slowly, her heart beating so hard in her chest she stumbles back and nearly drops to her knees. Did Max see her? Did she know she was there, lurking in the shadows? Alex composed herself, and she had just enough time to straighten before she saw a black sedan pulls opposite the restaurant. Alex stops and watches the car. A strange, familiar feeling creeps in. They're being watched, but who? Alex reaches for the scope to see if she can make out the figure in the vehicle. The black-tinted windows obscure the person, but then Alex sees the window sliding down. Just enough for her to see the driver. She quickly snapped a photo as her scope has dual function. A feature she asked the tech to incorporate when she first received her gear. Who is this man? She walks to her motorbike in the alley, pulling off her hoodie. Underneath, she had on a light cobalt shirt. Her black slacks are semi-formal and, reaching into her backpack, took out a pair of black heels. She removes her biker boots and slips the heels on, brushing her hand through her hair and then applying a light crimson lipstick to her lips. Satisfied with her looks, she puts on a pair of spectacles, clear glass, but a small camera installed in them. She slips quietly into the light and enters the restaurant. Inside the place had soft lighting and there was a lazy song playing over the speakers, almost romantic. Alex walks to the bar, where Maxine and Sophia sit deep in the center of the restaurant. As she passed them, her gaze met Max's. Their eyes locked, and Max held her gaze for a fraction too long. Alex felt her lips curve into a small smile. She walked past just before Max could say anything and took a place by the bar. Maxine looked up and saw Alex walking in. She held her breath as her heart thundered in her chest. Walking towards them was the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. To Max, she was gliding into the room, her fiery red curls cupping her face gently, a stray strand over her cheek, and those eyes, emerald green, piercing straight through the iron facade Max has buried her heart and emotions in. Her lips parted with a small smile, and Max felt her ice heart stirred to heat. As she walked past, Max smelled her perfume, soft, flowery, and it's a smell Max knows will haunt her in her dreams. Her eyes follow the woman as she slides onto the bar stool. Sophia's voice pulls her back to reality. "Yes, Sorella, I'll have whiskey," she says. Throughout the evening, Max finds herself glancing at the bar where Alex sits. In her hand, a glass of red wine. Max looks at her fingers, gently balancing the flute between them. Long fingers, soft and medium-length nails, painted in pastel pink. Maxine closed her eyes for a second, as if to imagine those gentle hands over her body. She quickly chases the thoughts away and pulls herself to reality, but not before her eyes met Alex's. She hears herself moan softly and forced her gaze to the whiskey on the table. Sophia was oblivious to the turmoil in her sister's chest and continued talking about family matters. Alex felt her resistance crumbled in Max's gaze. "Do not get close," her director's voice thunders in her head. She pays for her drink and slips out of the side entrance. Chapter 4: The Trail. Changing into professional wear, she gets onto the motorbike and drives to the motel she has been staying in for the duration of her mission. When she got back to her room, she downloads the photo of the driver onto her laptop and started her search. After a few searches on encrypted servers, she found him. Donovan Mastery. She reads the file, but before closing it, her eye spots a picture. A photo taken, looks like, maybe 4 years ago. He is standing in front of a building, what looks like a court. Sophia is slightly behind him. Alex clicks on the photo to read the report. It seems they were in a custody battle over their daughter. Sophia filed for a divorce, and she won custody. Donovan was abusive, but denied everything. Alex sighs and closes the laptop. She strips off her clothes and stands under the warm water. Tomorrow she will send the intel to her director. Sitting on the side of the bed, knowing that sleep is not finding her tonight, as her thoughts linger on the moment she and Max shared with their eyes. She gets up, pours a glass of wine, and sits on the chair by the window. Max looked up but found an empty seat at the bar. She looked around but no sight of the woman. Their evening ended when Sophia said they must head back. Max nods, her eyes still scanning the room, hoping to see the woman that stirred emotions in her that she buried many years ago. The ride to Sophia's hotel was quiet. Max spotted the car following in a distant way. She has lived down too many close calls in her life to ignore the vehicle. They reach Sophia's hotel, and Maxine instructs her bodyguards to remain with Sophia. She climbed behind into the vehicle and drove to her penthouse. Her mind keeps racing back to the woman in the restaurant. "I need to know her," she hears herself murmurs. "I will find her and make her mine." She steps into the shower but turns the heat off, almost as if she is either cooling herself off or waking herself. Chapter 5: Mountain Retreat. Alex wakes gently and feels her muscles ache. She fell asleep on the chair and now regretted not laying on the bed. A hot shower will soothe her body, she thought as she steps into the steamy shower. The sound of a notification on her tablet reminds her that today is the last day Max Giordano is in town. Then she will disappear into the mountains. Alex has learned this while digging up the minimal intel on Max. The previous spies the organization has sent had only fractured information, but this one they all confirmed. No one, however, knew where she goes when in the mountains, and Alex made it her life's mission to be the one to crack it. She had been preparing for a month, packing the minimal essentials, and after she installed an extra side carrier on her motorbike for an extra bag, she was ready. Max drives up to a point. Alex scans the property and surroundings. Electric fence to keep intruders out and guards stationed at what looked like an abandoned shack. Alex had to get past them as she saw Maxine's driver offloading a motorbike. She drives slowly and waits till she sees the guards being distracted. Her motorcycle's engine has a low hum as she drives past them quietly and follows the distant motorbike in front of her. Her heart is beating so fast in her chest that she nearly missed Max turning. She quickly turns and follows her up the small trail carved out only by the wheels of a motorbike. Maxine drove up the mountain. Her once-a-year retreat into the mountains has become a ritual. She stays secluded for a week and then emerges with new ideas and stronger fervor. She parks the bike in front of the old cabin, takes her bag off and walks to the door, unlocks it and steps inside. She walks into a warm atmosphere. Her staff had already lit the fire and she smelled fresh coffee. She poured herself a cup and sat in front of the fireplace, closing her eyes for a minute. Exhales as if to shed the hard exterior of the Mafia Queen and let her vulnerable self just embrace a moment of silence. Outside, Alex hides her bike in the bushes and watches through the window as Max sat down. There she sees it, the vulnerable woman that the world does not know, and for a split second Alex felt her heart drop. What it would feel like to have those toned arms around her and those perfect lips kissing her until she begs for more. The thoughts made Alex jump and retreat into the shadows. She set up her tent further away from the cabin, and sleep finds her quickly. Max wakes slowly and stretches. She lays a bit longer, and then gets up. She steps under a steamy shower and dresses for a morning hike. Pouring coffee into her mug, she steps onto the porch. The sun is peeking over the horizon almost as if it's playing before starting the day. Max finishes her coffee, puts the mug inside, and picks up her backpack, slings it over her shoulder, and starts walking. Alex, watch Maxine, leaves the cabin. She picks up her backpack and follows her in the safety of the forest. Max reaches a clearing and stops. She then takes her backpack off and starts stripping. Her clothes were falling one by one, and then she stood naked. Alex could not keep her eyes off Max's perfect toned muscle body. She felt her lips parted and just stood there in the shadows. For what seemed like an eternity, she saw Max dive off the cliff. She launched forward thinking Max had jumped to her death, only to see her emerged in the clear blue water below the cliff. Maxine stood there flushed. She watched as Max swam until the waterfall and turned around. Before Alex could move, Maxine spotted her. She stood like an angel, her red hair swaying in the cool breeze. Her leather pants fitting snugly around her well-toned legs, and Max could see her muscles under the leather. Her tank top is tight around her upper body, glistening stark white against her red fiery hair. Max held her gaze and then slowly swam to the shore. She steps out of the water, drops of water still clinging to her body. She walked slowly and steadily to Alex. Alex realized that she was frozen to the spot. As much as she wanted to retrieve into the shadows, Max's gaze held her in place. Max reached her, and they stood inches apart. Alex saw the small muscle on Max's neck tighten. She reaches past Alex and picks up her clothes, her gaze never leaving Alex's. Next minute, Alex was in Maxine's grip, her hands around her, and Alex felt the cold of the gun barreling on her temple. Max hissed in Alex's ear, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Her ice facade slipped into place. Alex swallowed hard. In all her years of training, she has never seen anyone moving that fast and swift. She reached for her gun, but a firm hand grabbed hers and pulled it up behind her. "Oh no, not so fast," Maxine whispers into Alex's ear. Instead of fight mode, Alex leaned against Max. She felt her warm body through her clothes. Alex put up her hands slowly in surrender. Okay, no sudden movements," she hears Max behind her. Maxine's grip slowly loosens around her neck and spun her around. Now, facing Max, Alex felt her breath on her face as she stood inches from her. So close Alex could see the green in her eyes. It was more a tint of gray-blue in them. She opened her mouth to speak but felt herself falling. Maxine carried Alex to her cabin. She placed her gently on the bed and pulled up her arms up to handcuff her to her bedpost. She stood there looking down on Alex, her gaze taking in every inch of this mysterious woman. The same woman from the restaurant. Max's heart gave a huge jump, and she turns to walk to the kitchen. She pulls out a bottle of whiskey and poured into a glass. Downing the first one, then she poured another and stood at the counter watching Alex. She remembers the look in Alex's face when she injected her with a needle. A mild sedative, just enough to knock her out cold. She had not expected that. Max looked at Alex's sleeping body and then at her watch. She has 3 hours to do what's needed. She grabbed her gun, pushed it in the holster under her arm, and walked out the cabin. She searched the woods around the cabin for an hour, but found nothing. Then she decided to return to the cabin when the sun illuminated a small silver object. Maxine walks closer to examine. Under bushes and branches, she found Alex's well-hidden bike. She pulled the branches off and pushed the bike down the narrow path. At the cabin, she pushed the bike to the back and secured it before locking the door and then stepping inside the cabin. Glancing at the room, she saw Alex was still out cold. She quickly showered, dressing in slacks that hung low over her hips, a tank top, and walks barefoot to the kitchen. Then she started making food. Alex stirred, and the smell of pasta hanging in the cabin was her confusion. She tried to move but felt her hands tighten. She struggled to get loose only to hear a soft, sultry voice from the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" Max turned to look at Alex. Alex turns from her bound hands to Max. She stood in the kitchen stirring something in the pot that smelled damn good. Alex felt her stomach growling. She closed her eyes trying to remember what happened before she ended up here in Max Giordano's bed, handcuffed to the post. "While what?" she mumbled. Her voice caught in her throat. Her mouth was dry, almost as if she had been in the desert for days without water. She tried to swallow, but nothing. From the corner of her eye, she saw Max stepping closer. In her hand there is a glass of water that she holds to her lips. Alex gulped down the water and stared at Max. She tried speaking again, almost to test her voice. "What did you do to me?" she whispers. Max turned around, strolling into the kitchen nonchalantly. "Just a mild sedative, you'll live." She sneered. Alex closed her eyes for a second, trying to recall what happened at the small cliff after Max emerged from the water. Mind foggy, she shook her head almost to shake her brain awake. She opened her eyes only to find Max looking at her. "Name," Max demanded. Alex knew if she gave her name, she is as good as dead. "Name," Max repeats, this time in a tone that freezes the blood in Alex's veins. "Alex," she mumbled. "Alex who?" She hears Max now stepping closer to the bed. "Alex Winters." Alex lied. Her real name was Alexandria Morano Caruso. But if Max knows that she will be dead. Alex knows her last name is like a dagger to Max, and she cannot under no circumstances say her last name. Her director recruited her 15 years ago to a clandestine organization with the promise of one day getting her revenge on the family that wiped out her entire generation. She was trained by the best in their field: spies, weaponry, martial arts, not just karate but all forms. She knows how to kill silently and effective, leaving no trail of her ever being there. Sniper training, self-defense, and various forms of poisons that either kill, maim, or just incapacitate. She is the ghost, but now she is laying bound to a bed because for one split second this gorgeous, and dangerously so, woman caught her off guard. Max's voice pulls her to the present. "So why are you here? Who sent you? How did you get past my guards?" An eyebrow raised as Max realized that Alex slipped past the most feared and dangerous bodyguards, and her heart tightened. Who is this woman? The question hammering in her mind. Chapter 6: A Feeble Escape. The drive to the main house in the village was stiff with silence, as Max had drugged Alex with the food she fed her. She needed to have her at a place where she has the upper hand. With Alex's hands behind her back in handcuffs, put her in front of her on the motorcycle, and took the easy route down the mountain. Alex's limp body was resting against her, and she felt the closeness to this beautiful stranger, soothing, yet weary. She reached the main house and carried Alex to one of the upstairs bedrooms. She put her on the bed and handcuffed her to the bedpost. Max left her there to go and make some phone calls downstairs. Deep in thought, she lost time. It was only when she heard a noise that she jumped up. She ran upstairs only to find an empty bed. Alex has managed to slip out of the handcuffs. Max spun around and saw the gun from her drawer was missing. She smiled. You want to play?" she said softly. She walks to the main bedroom to change. Chapter 7: The Fall. The silence broke. Not with a sound, but with a presence. Alex knew the moment it happened. That subtle shift in the air. The way her instincts, always precise, always sharp, suddenly screamed. She turned, gun half raised, but it was too late. "You're not very good at hiding," came a voice from the dark.
Smooth. Low.
Dangerous. Max Giordano stepped into the room like she owned the air inside it. Alex's jaw clenched. She didn't move.
Didn't speak.
The weapon in her hand didn't tremble, but Maxine didn't seem concerned. She walked forward, each step deliberate, dressed now in tailored black, no trace of moonlight softness in her eyes. Just steel. 6 months, Max said, tilting her head. 6 months of watching me, creeping around my walls, tapping into cameras you thought I didn't know about. Alex said nothing. Her heart thudded once, loud in her chest, then buried again. I have a lot of enemies, Max continued, but only one who watches like a lover before striking like a killer. Her lips twitched into something that might have been a smile. Or a warning. You're coming with me. Alex could have fought. She should have. But the room was already compromised, and something deeper, older, told her this wasn't going to end in a bullet. Instead, she nodded once, lowered her weapon, and let the fall begin. Chapter 8. The Week. They kept her in the guest wing. If that was what one called a wing with security glass, steel doors, and no exit points not monitored by Max's men. Still, it wasn't a dungeon. It was worse. It was beautiful, seductive in its quiet threat. Max visited every morning, brought coffee, sat across from her like they were old friends or future enemies. You thought I didn't know, she said one day, tracing the rim of her espresso cup with a perfectly manicured finger. But I always know who's watching me. Alex met her eyes. Then why let me live? A pause. Because I'm curious, Max said simply. What would make someone like you get so close and still hesitate? Alex didn't answer. Because the answer wasn't tactical. It was the way Max looked at her. The way she walked, smiled, studied her. The way she asked questions not with suspicion, but with interest. And Alex, for the first time in her career, didn't feel like a ghost in the room. She felt seen. But that didn't change the mission. Or the escape plan. It just made it more complicated. Chapter 9. Velvet Cages. Alex had stopped counting the days. Maybe that was dangerous. But so was the way Max moved when she entered the room. Like she had nothing to prove, and everything to take. That morning, Max wore white linen pants and a loose silk blouse, barefoot, hair still damp from the shower. Alex, seated by the window, didn't look up, but her body registered every detail. I thought spies preferred harsher conditions, Max said casually, setting down the breakfast tray. You're eating better here than I do. I'm not a spy, Alex replied, still staring out the window. Just observant. Max said, taking a seat across from her, folding one leg under her. Observant and stubborn. Fascinating combination. Alex finally turned. Their eyes locked. Max leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, gaze unflinching. You've been here 4 days. You haven't asked once what I plan to do with you. Alex's voice was low. I figured you were waiting to see if I'd break. That earned a slow smile. I don't break people, Alex. I seduce them into revealing what they already fear. Alex's breath caught, not visibly, not enough for most. But Max noticed. She always noticed. You think I'm afraid? Max rose and walked over, slow steps on the marble floor. She knelt beside Alex's chair, her presence pressing in, calm and warm and lethal. I think, she murmured, brushing a hand just inches from Alex's wrist without touching it, that something about me unsettles you. And you haven't figured out if it's because you want to destroy me or something else. Alex didn't move. She couldn't. Then Max stood. No smirk, no gloating. Just a quiet tension, like a string pulled taut between them. You're not like the others, Max said, stepping back. You know how to hide in plain sight. You don't leave traces. She glanced at Alex's hands. No prints. No name. A beat. But I'm starting to see through the edges. Alex's pulse ticked up. And that was the first real warning bell. Chapter 10. The Edge of the Mask. Later that evening, Max brought wine instead of coffee. A deep red, poured into crystal glasses like they were old lovers sharing a secret. Alex didn't touch hers. You don't drink. Max asked, lounging on the sofa in that casual, commanding way she had. I don't let my guard down, Alex replied, her voice dry. Is that what this is?
Guarding.
Max tilted her head, studying her. You know, most people break by now. They beg. Bargain. At the very least, they rant. But you're just quiet. Alex said nothing. Which means you were trained not to speak, Max went on, eyes gleaming. And your posture, military. But not the standard issue. Too fluid. Special forces, maybe. Or something off the books. Alex shifted slightly.
Just a twitch of the jaw.
But Max caught it. Am I getting warm? Alex turned away, lips tightening. You're playing games. No, Max said softly. I'm playing you. That hit harder than it should have. Because for a moment, Alex felt it. The slow, calculated peeling away of the layers she'd spent years perfecting. The problem wasn't that Max was guessing. The problem was she was right. Max rose, walked to the bookshelf, and selected a worn volume. Something in Italian. She held it up between two fingers. Dante, she said. You highlighted passages in this one. Didn't think I'd notice? The darkest places in hell are reserved for those who maintain their neutrality in times of moral crisis. Alex's breath faltered. Max smiled. One of my people pulled the voice recording from the hotel you checked into 2 months ago, under the name Elisa Tarrant. But Elisa doesn't have your cadence. You flatten your vowels like someone trained in covert linguistics. Alex stood then, slow and cold. What do you want? I want to know why a ghost like you, so careful, so precise, got close enough to touch the flame. Max's voice softened, laced with curiosity. Was it really just the mission, or did I make you curious too? Silence.
Tense.
Breathing shared between them. Alex walked to the door, but it was locked as always. You're not a prisoner here, Alex, Max said behind her. You're a puzzle, and I always finish what I start. Chapter 11. Breaking Silence. The night was thick with heat, the air heavy, pressing in on the room like a physical weight. Alex paced in tight, controlled steps, her mind running through every exit strategy, every plan she'd memorized. But tonight, she couldn't focus. Not with the way Max had cornered her, not with the memory of those words echoing in her head. I always finish what I start. Max was patient. Too patient. Something's bothering you, she said, her voice smooth and low. She was leaning against the doorframe, watching Alex like a predator observing its prey. Alex didn't stop moving. Didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. But the room felt too small. Too suffocating. You've been quiet today, Max continued, her footsteps soft as she approached. Usually you're sharp. A little too sharp. She circled Alex like a cat testing the edge of a knife. But today I caught a slip. Just a fraction. In the way you looked at the picture of your sister. Alex froze mid-step. The slip. A picture. Buried in the back of a drawer. Her younger sister, taken a year before Alex was pulled into this world of shadows. A life she tried to bury with every breath, every mission. But Max noticed. You didn't even try to hide it, Max mused, her voice almost thoughtful. Not your name. Not the family you thought no one knew about. Or your obsession with keeping her safe. Alex's pulse thrummed, louder now. You've been running, haven't you? Max whispered, leaning so close Alex could feel the warmth of her breath against her skin. From the people who raised you. From the ghosts in your past. But most of all, from the things you've done to survive. Alex's back stiffened. She wanted to move, wanted to retaliate. But something kept her in place. The weight of Max's gaze, the gentle probing touch of her words. It felt like drowning without the water. You think I don't know what it's like to bury the parts of yourself you can't live with? Max continued, her fingers now grazing Alex's arm, just lightly enough to make her skin tingle. You think I don't know what it feels like to hold a version of yourself so far down that even you can't recognize it anymore? Max stepped back, the space between them widening for the first time since she entered the room. But what if I told you that running doesn't work? Not for you. Not for me.
Because I see you, Alex.
I know who you are. Max's eyes darkened, something raw flickering in them. And if you think you're the only one who hides behind masks, you've underestimated me. The room was still, heavy. The words hung like smoke in the air, thick and choking. Alex took a step back, but she knew it was too late. Max had seen her, and now she'd never be able to hide again. Chapter 12. Shattered Veil. The silence in the room was suffocating, thick with the weight of words unsaid. Alex stood, frozen, every muscle in her body taut, as though she might snap in two. Max's gaze was no longer just observant. It was hungry, not for information, not for control, but for Alex herself. So, here we are. Max's voice was quieter now, but there was an edge to it that Alex couldn't ignore. No more games, no more walls. You're not just trained to hide, Alex. You've made it your identity. The ghost that no one can touch. But I've touched you. The finality in her tone hit harder than any punch. Alex didn't move, didn't speak. The panic clawing at her insides threatened to overtake her. This was the part she hadn't prepared for. This was when everything she had kept locked away for so long started to bleed out, and she wasn't sure she could hold it back anymore. Max's eyes never left her. You want a break, don't you? The question hung in the air. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't an accusation. It was a truth, undeniable. Max had seen the cracks, the small moments where Alex faltered, where the mask slipped. Alex's throat went dry. She wanted to shout, to lash out, but the words were buried too deep. She couldn't even form them. She couldn't remember a time when she hadn't been hiding. Maxine stepped forward again, close enough now that Alex could feel the heat radiating off her. She could smell the faint trace of perfume, the scent of power, the overwhelming sensation of control. You've been running from the truth, Alex, Max said softly, her fingers brushing the side of Alex's face, the touch so gentle it made Alex want to pull away. But she didn't. She stood still. From the woman you used to be. From the woman you've forgotten. Alex began, but her voice cracked, breaking on the single syllable. She swallowed hard, trying to gather her thoughts, but they scattered like smoke in the air. Max didn't let her finish. You think I don't know the kind of darkness you carry? The things you've done to survive? I can see it in your eyes. Her hand trailed down Alex's jaw, as if she were savoring the moment. You think I'm the only one who hides? It was too much. Too real. Without warning, Alex's composure shattered. The weight of everything she had buried, her guilt, her fear, the constant ache of being someone she wasn't anymore, hit her like a tidal wave. She was done running, done pretending, and for the first time in years, she felt exposed. Stop, Alex whispered, her voice barely audible. But it wasn't a command. It was a plea, a cry for relief, for Max to let her off this razor-sharp edge. Max's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. I won't stop until you stop running, Alex.
She was too close now.
And Alex could feel it, everything, all at once. The crushing weight of vulnerability, the hunger in Max's eyes that burned through the walls, the understanding in her touch that made Alex feel as though she were being seen for the first time in her life. And then, for the briefest moment, their gazes locked, a spark flaring in the silence. Tell me, Max whispered. Who are you really? The question was simple. Too simple. And yet, it shattered everything. Because in that moment, Alex realized, she didn't have an answer. Chapter 13. Unraveled. The air between them thickened. The room was small, but it felt as though it were closing in on Alex. She could feel Max's breath, warm, steady, just inches from her own, her pulse pounding in her ears. Everything inside her screamed to run, to push Max away, to reclaim the distance that had kept her safe for so long. But the truth was that she was tired of running, of hiding, of pretending she was something she wasn't. Max had already broken her wide open. The rest was just a matter of time. Max's hand moved from Alex's face, sliding down to the curve of her neck, her fingers tracing the line of her jaw in slow, deliberate motions. Alex couldn't move. She didn't want to. It felt like a dangerous game, but one she couldn't pull herself away from. "I see it now," Max whispered, her lips dangerously close to Alex's ear. "I see everything you're hiding. I see the woman behind the mask." Her voice dropped lower, huskier. "And I think I like what I see." The words sent a shiver down Alex's spine. A gasp caught in her throat, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she let Max's presence invade every inch of her body, every corner of her mind. Max's fingers slid to the back of Alex's neck, her touch now firm, grounding. "You're not a ghost, Alex. You're alive." And in that moment, for the briefest of seconds, Alex didn't feel like the woman who had killed to survive. The woman who had buried her past so deep she'd almost forgotten how to feel. In that instant, she was just a woman, raw, exposed, vulnerable, and Max was the one person who had seen through it all. Max's lips brushed against her ear, and Alex's breath hitched. "I don't think you're ready for this," Max murmured, a knowing smile curling at the corners of her lips. Before Alex could respond, Max pulled back, her eyes dark with something dangerous and intoxicating. "But you will be." Chapter 14. The Fallout. The next morning, Alex woke up in the same guest room, the same steel bars of reality pressing in on her. But something inside her had changed. She couldn't stop thinking about the way Max had touched her, the way the walls had come crashing down between them. Every instinct pulled her to fight, to pull herself back into the shadows where she belonged. But the truth was, she couldn't forget the heat, the fire, the way Max had unraveled her with nothing more than a look, a touch. Alex moved to the window, staring out at the city below. The sprawling, chaotic beauty of it all felt so far away now, so distant, like she was looking at someone else's life. A life she didn't deserve. Not after everything she'd done. But what hurt the most wasn't the guilt. It wasn't the mission that had been thrown off course. It was the feeling that something inside her had shifted, in a way she couldn't explain, in a way she wasn't sure she wanted to understand. Max had reached her, and in doing so, had forced her to face the one thing she couldn't run from, herself. Alex's hand clenched into a fist against the glass. She needed to get out of here. She needed to leave before she fell further into this mess, before Max had any more of her. But that was the problem, wasn't it? She was already lost. Chapter 15. Fractured Pieces. The silence in the room was deafening. Every tick of the clock on the wall seemed to echo in Alex's mind as she sat at the edge of the bed, staring at nothing in particular. Her hands were still shaking, though she tried to hide it, gripping the edge of the mattress to steady herself. "I can't let this happen." The thought was repeated over and over, a mantra that seemed to fight against the part of her that didn't want to fight it anymore. Max had seen through her, more clearly than anyone ever had. Alex had always prided herself on being untouchable, a ghost in the shadows. But Max was different. She had broken her down with patience, with words, with something that felt dangerously close to understanding.
And now
Alex couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into this place a week ago. The walls were shattered, and everything inside her felt exposed, raw.
Focus.
Her breath came shallow as she stood, walking to the small window that overlooked the city. It was late afternoon, the golden light spilling over the rooftops, casting long shadows in the streets below. The world was moving on, oblivious to the storm inside her, to the fact that Alex was no longer the ghost she had been. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was what came next. Alex took a deep breath, steadying herself. Focus on the mission. The mission is everything. Her mind began to clear, the panic receding as she started to piece together her escape. Logistics. The exits. The routes she'd memorized the moment she stepped foot in this place. She was a professional. She had been trained for this. But this was different. Max had gotten under her skin. She'd made Alex feel like she could stay, like she could stop running. But that wasn't an option. Not anymore. Her hands moved with purpose as she opened the small bag she'd packed when she first arrived at the mountain cabin. A few changes of clothes, a set of tools she'd used before, and a weapon. one that Max didn't know about. But it wasn't just the tools that mattered. It was the mindset. Alex was a woman with a singular goal. And that goal, right now, was freedom. She turned, her eyes lingering on the door. Max was close. She always was. Alex could feel it. But she didn't know how close she was, how much Max really knew. Not yet. She couldn't afford to let her guard down again. Just get out. You can deal with it later. Alex moved to the small desk in the corner, pulling out a map of the mansion and the surrounding area. She traced her finger along the edges of the property, security cameras, guards, and exit points. She'd memorized every detail, and now she needed to make sure nothing would go wrong. The escape route would take her through the underground tunnels. She had scoped them out the night she'd arrived, and they would lead her out to the outskirts of the city. There were always risks, too many variables she couldn't control, but it was the only way. One way or another, I'm getting out. The thought was a cold comfort, a reminder of who she was. The woman who survived. The woman who always escaped. Chapter 16. The Escape. It was almost dark when Alex made her move. Her heart was racing, but the plan was in motion. There was no turning back now. She slipped out of the room quietly, checking the hallway. Empty. She moved quickly, her movements silent, a shadow in the night. She didn't need to see Max. She didn't need to confront her. The mission had already changed. Now it was survival. The underground entrance was close. She could feel the tension in her body building with each step, but she pushed it aside. There was no time for hesitation. Alex reached the basement door, fingers brushing against the cold steel. She had done this before, too many times. In and out. A ghost. A whisper in the dark. But this time it felt different. Just before she opened the door, her mind flashed to Max. The way she had touched her. The way she had broken her down. The way she had made her feel alive. For a moment, Alex hesitated. For a fraction of a second, she questioned everything. But then the moment passed. I can't stay. She twisted the handle and stepped into the darkness, the door shutting quietly behind her. She was alone again, just the way she liked it. Chapter 17. The Hunt. Max stood in the empty room, the silence pressing against her like a physical force. The bed was still made, the window shut, the air still too heavy with the lingering scent of Alex's presence. At first, Max had thought it was a mistake. That maybe Alex was just in the bathroom, or had slipped out for some reason. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, the truth became undeniable. Alex was gone. She had escaped. Max's pulse quickened, her mind immediately sorting through the possibilities. The doors?
Locked.
The windows?
Secure.
The mansion had been designed to keep people in. And yet, Alex had found a way out. There was a method to this, a professionalism that stung worse than anything Max had expected. Alex was skilled, trained, a shadow in the dark. She'd always known how to disappear. But that didn't mean Max was going to let her go that easily. Max's eyes narrowed as she moved to the desk, quickly pulling up the security footage from the night before. She watched it with an almost unsettling calmness, her fingers hovering over the mouse, pausing, rewinding, scanning for any sign of Alex's departure. And then there it was, the small, almost imperceptible flicker in the shadows. A figure moving silently through the hallways, bypassing the guards and security systems. Max's lips curled into a smile. It was almost impressive. Almost. She pressed a button to call up the rest of the footage, replaying the moments from when Alex first arrived. Her mind raced, each frame unraveling the puzzle, each detail shedding light on how Alex had played her, how she had been, for all intents and purposes, a ghost in Max's world.
But now?
Now she was the one who had been left behind. Max slammed her hand against the desk, the sharp sound of it cutting through the silence. Her pulse thudded in her ears, and her body was flooded with adrenaline. Get her back. It wasn't about the mission anymore. It wasn't about revenge. No, this was something deeper. It was a pursuit, not just of a woman who had escaped, but of something that Max had only begun to understand. Alex had gotten under her skin. She had forced Max to see something, feel something that wasn't supposed to be there. Max turned sharply, moving toward the door. She wouldn't stop until she found her. Chapter 18. The Ghost's Trail. The night air was cold, and the city buzzed with a kind of frenetic energy that felt completely out of place. Alex had left no trace. No sign of where she was going, no indication of her next move. It was as if she had never been there at all. Max stood on the rooftop of the mansion, looking out at the sprawling city below. Her mind was racing, sifting through possibilities, planning her next move. The frustration was gnawing at her. Alex wasn't just good at vanishing. She was a ghost. The only clue Max had was a faint trace of Alex's scent lingering in the hallways. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was a thread, a strand that Max could follow, a whisper that she could chase. The question was, would Alex want to be found? Max's jaw tightened as she turned away from the view. The hunt wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. Chapter 19. Uncovering the Ghost. Max's search took her across the city, the usual grace and control she exhibited slipping just a little as frustration began to claw at her. She'd followed Alex's faint trail through the underground tunnels, across rooftops, through shadowed alleyways, but the woman who had once felt like an easy puzzle to solve now seemed impossibly elusive. Max's mind worked at full capacity, each step bringing her closer to the conclusion that Alex had planned this escape long before she'd ever been caught. She reached out to her network, the ones who could gather intel quickly. Her contacts came back with bits of information that didn't sit well, whispers in the shadows about a woman matching Alex's description, someone with skills far beyond what she had originally assumed. The pieces didn't fit together, not in the way they were supposed to. Something was off. Max stood at the edge of a rooftop overlooking the city. The sky above was dimming, the light from the setting sun bleeding across the horizon. She had one more place to check. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her tech team. "We found something, boss." She opened the message.
A file.
A report. Something that made her stop, her heart suddenly in her throat. She scanned the document, her gaze narrowing with every word. Alex's real name wasn't just Alex. Her mind raced, processing the information as if it didn't quite make sense at first. Alexandria Morano Caruso. A name she knew, though it had been buried in the shadows of history. A former operative, highly trained, part of a covert organization known for its ruthlessness. The files on her were scattered, intentionally vague, but Max had always had a talent for reading between the lines. So that's who she is. The woman who had been right in front of her, the one who had torn down Max's defenses with a mere look, was someone else entirely. Someone trained to disappear. Someone Max would have never expected. Her mind went back to their conversations, to the fleeting moments when Alex's eyes seemed to betray something more than the cold, detached professional Max had pegged her as. Was she pretending to be someone else, even to herself? Or was this woman a ghost, an assassin, truly just a shell? Max clenched her jaw. The knowledge that Alex had been hiding so much, lying, only stoked the fire. She was angry, but it was a different kind of anger. It wasn't just about the game anymore. It was personal, because now every moment they had shared felt like a lie. The walls Alex had built, the ones Max had tried to break down, those walls were made of nothing but deceit. She had to find her, not just because it was her job, because it had turned into something far more complicated than that. Chapter 20. A Name in the Dark. Max stood in front of the building, the shadows swallowing her whole as she approached the door. She had tracked Alex's movements to this place, the last piece of the puzzle. The old warehouse had been abandoned for years, the perfect hideout for someone who knew how to cover their tracks. Her footsteps were silent on the concrete floor, the smell of dust and decay heavy in the air. She could feel the presence of Alex in the air, like a phantom lingering just out of reach. The door creaked as she pushed it open, and she was greeted with darkness. But that was fine. Max didn't need light. She had been in the dark for so long. It was where she felt most alive. Her eyes adjusted, her senses sharpening as she moved deeper into the building. The silence was unsettling. And then, a whisper of movement. Max's heart skipped a beat as she turned, her gun already in hand. She saw a figure in the shadows, but it wasn't Alex. It was a memory. The file. The name. Alexandria Morano Caruso. Max's mind raced as she stepped closer, and then she saw it. Something that stopped her in her tracks. On the wall, half hidden behind an old stack of crates, was a series of photographs. Alexandria, was in every one of them. Some were blurry, others faded with age, but it was unmistakable. This was the woman she had been searching for. This was the real Alex. But it wasn't just her. In the photos, there were others, agents, professionals, each one with a different story. But they all shared one thing in common. They were part of an organization, a group that Max had only ever heard rumors about. A ghost operation that worked in the shadows, taking out targets for the highest bidder. Alex hadn't just been an operative. She had been one of the best. Max's mind shifted again. She had known Alex had secrets. Everyone had them. But this was big. This was something she had no way of preparing for. But it was too late to back away now. The door creaked behind her, and she spun. But there was no one there. Alex had left a trail for Max, a trail of breadcrumbs that had led her right to the truth. But now, the real question was, why? Why had she stayed? Why had she let herself be caught? Max felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about finding Alex anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, about discovering who Alex truly was and what kind of game she had been playing all along. Max wasn't going to let her slip through her fingers again. Chapter 21. Torn Threads. Max sat in the shadows of the old warehouse, her fingers brushing over the worn photographs that now lay scattered across the floor. Each image was a piece of Alex's past, a puzzle she had never been meant to see. But now that she had seen it, she couldn't look away. Alexandria Morano Caruso. The name echoed in her mind, displacing everything she had thought she knew. Alex had been playing her this entire time. Every smile, every touch, every word they had exchanged, it had all been a facade. Alex had let her in only to pull away, to keep her at arm's length, and Max had fallen for it. Hadn't she? She had let herself believe that Alex could be more than just a trained killer. But now, with the photographs in her hand, everything felt like a lie. Alex wasn't who Max had wanted her to be. She wasn't just some woman caught in the web of the Mafia, someone to be seduced and controlled. She was a ghost, someone with a past so shadowed, so buried in secrecy, that even Max couldn't touch it. Max closed her eyes, pressing her fingers to her temples, as if trying to push away the storm inside her head. There was a familiar feeling clawing at her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt. She had been so sure of herself, of what she wanted. And then Alex had entered her life like a whirlwind, knocking down walls that Max hadn't even realized were still standing. The way Alex had made her feel, vulnerable, seen, wasn't something Max was accustomed to. And now, Max was left questioning everything. Had she been played? She knew Alex wasn't some naive woman who didn't know what she was doing. She knew the stakes. She had known Max's weakness from the beginning, had seen the cracks in her armor. And yet, she had stayed. Even as she kept secrets, even as she pulled away, Alex had stayed close enough to make Max believe they were building something real. But it wasn't real. It was all smoke and mirrors. Max stood up suddenly, her hands clenched into fists as the anger surged through her veins. The way Alex had toyed with her, leaving her in this state of confusion, hurt. It was like nothing she had ever felt. And yet there was something else. Beneath the anger, there was something deeper. A pull she couldn't explain. She should hate Alex. She should feel betrayed, angry, and willing to do anything to get her back. But instead, what Max felt was curiosity. Why had Alex stayed? Why had she let herself be caught in the first place? Was this about the mission? Or had there been something more, something hidden beneath the layers of deception? Max swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing.
No.
She couldn't afford to let her emotions cloud her judgment. This was business. This was personal, but it was still business. Alex had escaped. She was a liability, a target, and Max needed to finish this. But a small part of her, the part she refused to acknowledge, wasn't ready to let go. Chapter 22. Slivers in the Dark. Max knew Alex had left clues. That's how it had always been. The woman who was a ghost didn't just disappear without a trace. Max had learned that much in the short time she'd been chasing her. But as she searched through the warehouse, every inch of her instinct screaming for her to find Alex, she couldn't help but feel something else. Alex wanted her to find her. The realization struck Max like a cold wave. Alex wasn't trying to stay hidden. She had left a trail. She had known Max would come for her.
But why?
Max found the first clue beneath the loose floorboard in the back corner of the warehouse. It wasn't much, just a small, folded piece of paper. But the handwriting was unmistakable. You're close. Too close. Max's pulse quickened. She knew exactly what that meant. Alex wasn't running from her. She was running with her, leading her to something. But what? She unfolded the paper slowly, her mind already racing ahead. There was a map, scribbled in Alex's neat, precise handwriting, showing the next location. But it wasn't just a map, it was a message. A clue, maybe even a dare. Follow me. You'll find me when you're ready to see the truth. The words hit Max like a punch to the gut.
The truth.
Max's fingers tightened around the paper, the anger bubbling back to the surface. Alex was taunting her. She was playing games, making Max follow her like a dog chasing a bone. But there was something deeper in those words, something that pulled at Max's chest in a way she couldn't explain. She wasn't just chasing Alex. She was chasing answers. Chapter 23. Threads in the Dark. Max followed the map Alex had left her, each step pulling her further into the web that had been spun with precision. The clues weren't just physical. They felt like little pieces of a much larger puzzle, each one forcing her to confront a side of herself she had kept hidden for years. She arrived at the next location, a rundown hotel on the outskirts of the city. The building seemed abandoned, but the flickering light inside the lobby told her otherwise. She pushed open the door, the creak of the hinges echoing in the silence. The first thing she noticed was the photograph pinned to the wall behind the front desk. It was an old black and white photo, framed delicately, with a single word scribbled on the back. Remember me? It was a picture of a younger version of Alex, or Alexandria, as she was truly known, standing with a group of people, all in military attire. Max could see the steel in Alex's eyes even in the faded image, the same icy gaze that had pierced through her when they first met. Max's heart pounded as she reached for the photograph, the weight of it sinking deep into her chest. The people around Alex, other operatives, no doubt, seemed to stare at her through the photo, silently challenging her. The message was clear. This is who she is. This is what she's been running from. But now you've stepped into it too. Max tore her gaze away from the photo, her eyes scanning the room. She had to move, had to keep going. But the turmoil inside her was growing, the questions mounting with every step she took.
Why?
Why did she leave all of this behind? And more importantly, why was she still playing with me? She walked down the narrow hallway, her footsteps heavy in the silence. At the end of the corridor, she found another clue. This time, it wasn't a photograph. It was a letter, folded neatly and left on the floor. She picked it up, her fingers trembling as she read the carefully written words. You're too close now. But don't expect the truth to set you free. Max's stomach churned. The words felt like a warning, but they were also a challenge.
Truth.
It was a word that had been echoing in her mind ever since she discovered who Alex really was. What did the truth even mean? What was Alex trying to say? Max crumpled the letter in her hand, her anger rising like a wave. She wanted to scream, to smash everything in her path. But instead, she forced herself to breathe, to focus. The chase wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 24. Unraveling. The next clue took her to an underground garage beneath an abandoned shopping mall. The space was dimly lit, the concrete walls cracked and worn from years of neglect. It was a place that reeked of desperation, of people who had nowhere else to go, just like the shadowy existence Alex had lived. A single car was parked in the far corner, an old black sedan that Max recognized instantly. The same make and model Alex had been using before she disappeared. Her pulse quickened as she moved closer to the vehicle. Every instinct telling her this was the next piece of the puzzle.
And it was.
She reached inside the car, finding a small envelope wedged between the seat cushions. With shaking hands, she tore it open. Inside, there was nothing but a photograph and a set of coordinates. The photograph showed Alexandria, in the middle of a dense jungle, a rifle slung over her shoulder. She looked impossibly young in the photo, maybe 20 years old, but already carrying the weight of the world in her eyes. And in the background, a series of shadowy figures stood, their faces obscured by the blur of the camera. Max's gaze locked onto the coordinates at the bottom of the page. They pointed to a remote location, deep in the heart of the mountains. Alex wants me to go there.
Why?
The questions were overwhelming, but the more Max searched for answers, the more she realized how little she truly knew about Alex. The woman who had slipped through her fingers like sand. The woman who had made her question everything. Max's fingers gripped the photograph, the edges digging into her palm. There was something in the way Alex had arranged the clues, a hidden message, a silent plea. A call for something that Max wasn't sure she was ready to understand. Chapter 25. The Final Thread. Max's heart raced as she reached the coordinates. The location was desolate, a stretch of land where the mountains met the sky in a jagged line. The air was thick with tension, the silence around her almost suffocating. The final clue came in the form of a single word, written in the dirt at her feet. Stop. Max froze. It was Alex's handwriting, there was no mistaking it. But the word felt like a trap, a final test. Stop. It was too late for that. Max had followed these clues for too long, piecing together fragments of a woman who had shattered her every perception of reality. She had come too far to turn back now. With a final, deep breath, she knelt down, her hand brushing the dirt away. Underneath, there was another photograph, this time of the two of them. It was taken during a moment of closeness, something Max hadn't expected, hadn't wanted. But now, looking at the image, she realized it had been a choice. A choice Alex had made to let Max in, to show her something deeper.
I wanted you to know me.
The words, unspoken but clear, lingered in the air. Max took the photo in her hand, her chest tightening as the pieces of Alex's puzzle finally fell into place. It wasn't just about the chase anymore. It wasn't about the mission. It was about Alex, the woman behind the ghost. The woman Max hadn't just been hunting, but the one she had slowly been drawn to, without even realizing it. End of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 coming soon. Also subscribe and I will create more stories for you to enjoy.